This is a video of the aftermath of a strike in the al-Shati refugee camp in Gaza. According to journalists working for CNN, the attack came during intense Israeli bombing Sunday night. The IDF has not commented on the incident. United Nations officials today said 70% of people in the Gaza Strip are displaced, many in living in conditions a statement called, quote, inhumane. The Secretary General said that Gaza is becoming a, quote, graveyard for children.
Welcome to Khanversations. I'm Muqtedar, your host, and today on the 1 month anniversary of the Palestinian crisis, I want to make some observations about the Israel-Hamas war, or the war of revenge that Israel is waging on Gaza. This war was triggered on October 7th by a horrific terrorist attack by Hamas on Israel, which killed a lot of civilians. 1,400 Israelis were killed, and many of them civilians, women and children. The brutality with which Hamas attacked Israel was astonishing. And according to many commentators and observers, now this is perhaps the biggest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. And so it has had a huge psychological impact on Israel and Israel's friends. And it has also triggered one of the most brutal, violent wars that we have seen in the recent past, or in this 21st century. Israel's war of revenge is genocidal in nature. It is indiscriminately bombing the whole tiny place of Gaza. The total number of civilians and people killed in Gaza is now over 10,200, of which 4,300 of them are children. If we kill that many children in America, it would be like killing 700,000 children, or killing over 2 million people if you adjust for the size of population. Gaza is a really tiny place, 150 square kilometers, with about 2.3 million population. So the brutality of Israel's response has been stunning. And so it is in this context that I want to make certain observations. And for those of you who have come to Khanversations for the first time, please subscribe to Khanversations, press the bell icon, and like the video and share it with your colleagues and your friends. So my first observation is this amazing appetite of both Israel and America for genocidal violence is stunning and breathtaking. I could not have imagined we can expect Israel to unleash violence which leads to killing of thousands of civilians, because it has done so in the past and has attacked Gaza in the same manner, flattening civilian resources, attacking hospitals, ambulances, etc. in the past. But the fact that America can just watch this on television, watch it on social media, images coming through Instagram, we can look at the war while it is happening. We can look at the victims, and we can see the direct consequence of this huge bombardment. And all of this funded, armed, facilitated, and protected by the US. So the US is arming Israel. From day one, the US has been sending weapons to Israel. Within a few hours of Hamas's attack, America started sending weapons to Israel. America is watching this. America is using its veto in the UN to protect Israel from international condemnations. It has sent 2 aircraft carriers, 1 nuclear submarine, to prevent others from intervening and preventing Israel from continuing with its violence in Gaza. So the appetite that America seems to have, not even calling for a ceasefire, and when they called under domestic political pressure for a humanitarian pause, and Netanyahu rejected it, America had no response. It is absolutely striking and stunning for me that America has the appetite, and both Biden and Blinken can continue to watch what is happening in Gaza while the rest of the world is horrified at the inhumanity of it. And America has an appetite for that, to choose just one country to be safe and one country to be completely devastated. It is stunning and breathtaking, this immorality, if you want to call it, or this selective immorality, this selective compassion, this selective support is breathtaking and stunning. And I have never seen anything like this in my 50 years of life, partly because it's all visible now, and partly because this is not what I thought America was capable of. When Joe Biden became president, he said the whole America is back, and he was going to place human rights at the center of his foreign policy. Well, we are seeing what this is. I have never understood that when Joe Biden said that his support for Israel was ironclad, I never realized that it was also immune to the vision, to the visual of a genocidal war. Many countries are now openly calling what's happening in Gaza as a genocide. South Africa, Brazil, and many other countries have mentioned it. Even in the UN, people are calling Gaza as a graveyard of children. And it is unbelievable to me that American leaders, especially from the Democratic Party, yes, there's a tremendous opposition on the progressive side of the left, but the mainstream Democratic Party is okay with what it is happening, with what it is doing, is to me unbelievable.
There were children with just massive burns down their faces, down their necks, all over their limbs. And because the hospitals are so overwhelmed, they are being discharged immediately after, and they're being discharged to these camps with no access to running water. There's 50,000 people at that camp now and 4 toilets. They're given 2 hours of water every 12 hours.
There's 4 toilets for 50,000 people.
Yes. And that's where we were living too. And they have these fresh, open burns and wounds and partial amputations that are just walking around these conditions. And parents are bringing their children to us going, please, can you help? Please, can you help?
This cruel side of America has never been on display as shamelessly and as starkly as it is today. The cruelty of America can be seen in what's happening in Gaza. Number 2, this is a more of a strategic observation that Israel is not really as strong as we thought it was. Since Obama left, for the last 3 years, we've been giving, $4 billion a year to Israel for security purposes, and transfer of weapons, transfer of technology, and a ragtag bunch of terrorists attack Israel, Hamas. How many fighters does it have? 20,000? It attacks Israel, and suddenly Israel needs billions of dollars of aid. The Congress is giving away $14.5 billion in aid to Israel. We have already transferred millions of dollars of weapons. Today itself, I think $302 million worth of weapons have been transferred to Israel. Great Britain has been transferring weapons to Israel. And so apparently Israel is such a weak country that in order to fight Hamas, it needs 2 nuclear powers to transfer weapons and aid to it to fight. So that is, to me, quite surprising, from a military perspective, that Israel is so fragile that Hamas could threaten it existentially. And in order to do that, the US also has to send 2 aircraft carriers and a nuclear submarine to the area to protect it from external interventions. And not only that, but Israeli ministers are now invoking the option of nuking Gaza. So there's a minister who has now been sidelined, but one of the ministers from the cabinet of Bibi Netanyahu, not the war cabinet, but the original cabinet of Bibi Netanyahu, has suggested that Gaza should be nuked. And the way Israel is going, I guess perhaps in the next iteration of this, we will see that kind of violence, because who would have thought that we would see an incessant bombing of nearly for a month on Gaza? And there's promises from Netanyahu that this is not going to end anytime soon. So to me, the fact that Israel is so weak that it needs to be armed instantly, and we are sending billions of dollars in the near future. We've already sent close to $500 million in weapons, etc. Already used the veto at least twice, I think, in the UN Security Council. So this fact remains to be surprising to me, that Israel is so weak that it cannot live one day or cannot fight one day without the help of the United States of America. The third point that I want to make is the protests in London, the protests in Washington, D.C. this weekend, the protests across college campuses. That shows that the balance of power in America is shifting. The protests are very interesting because it tells you that the population of America, at least there is segments of those who are not on board with this genocidal violence that the United States is sponsoring, and the United States is funding, and the United States is facilitating. So the third point that I wanted to make was that perhaps the balance of power is changing inside in America. But the critical aspect of this is also that finally the Arab Americans have spoken up. American Muslims have clearly made this demand that unless Biden calls for ceasefire, he's not going to get their vote. And this is very important. It is very important that Biden lose in November, even if that means that Donald Trump wins. Donald Trump didn't start any wars. Joe Biden has sustained 2 wars which have killed thousands and thousands of people in Gaza and in Ukraine. No peace initiative, neither here, no call for ceasefire, nor a call for ceasefire there. And that war has been going on for 18 months. Russia remains strong and is getting stronger, and Ukraine is more and more devastated thanks to Mr. Biden's policies. So I think it is very important that Biden should lose so that Democrats in the future realize that they're not like Republicans anymore when it comes to the Israeli issue, that Israel can kill, can destroy the possibilities of 2-state solutions, that settlers can go into West Bank and do whatever they want. Israeli ministers can walk into the mosque in Aqsa, violate international norms every day, break international rules every day, but America will stand by it in an ironclad way, no matter what. At least the Democrats will have to soon realize that they cannot do that. If they want to do that, they can become Republicans and take their chances that way. Because as you can see in all these bipartisan initiatives, there is no difference between American Democrats and Republicans like Ted Cruz. And I keep forgetting that horrible senator from North Carolina. My mind just blocks him off. But you know who I'm talking about. So the third point is that there is a shift, at least to some extent, in the domestic politics and I hope that it does have an impact in November. Otherwise, it will be as routine. Muslim, Arab, progressive voices will be taken for granted, saying, "Oh well, go vote for Republicans," and there goes your social justice agenda. There goes your progressive agenda, because Republicans are not going to do any of that. And so you have no choice but vote for us, and we will do whatever we want because you have no other choice. I think we will have to punish Joe Biden if he runs for president in order to send the message to the Democrats that, well, while we share a lot in common with you, we do not support genocidal violence overseas. And the fourth point that I want to make is about the Arab world. I'm quite stunned by the importance of the Arab world and the Middle East. None of these countries, I mean, yes, the Turkish president is making statements which are critical of Israel, but actions are nothing beyond sending humanitarian aid. The Arab countries seem to be more concerned about their own national security, making sure that none of the Palestinian and Gazan refugees come to their countries, either from West Bank into Jordan or from Gaza into Egypt. So they're more concerned about maintaining their relations with Israel, continuing with the Abrahamic Accords, maintaining good relations with the US. I mean, whenever Blinken wants, he goes to their capitals and gets their attention. It's just surprising to me. So the inability of the Arab world and Arab countries to have any impact on this clearly says that the Palestinians are on their own. and their Arab brethren are more of a liability than an asset for the Palestinian freedom, which means that the Palestinians should also calibrate their goals and ambitions, keeping in mind that while some people might, like me, will say things in support, there's nobody who's actually going to go and take serious action. The only player which is other than Israel, which is taking action, is the US, and it is in support of Israel, sending nuclear submarines and aircraft carriers and using the veto, etc. So I think the fourth point that I wanted to make is just apparent to everybody: the Arab world has become essentially a failed region. It is a failed world. In spite of the wealth that oil has generated, there is no substance in these countries. They stand for nothing, except their individual regime continuity and maybe their country's wealth. But from a moral and principle perspective, they stand for nothing. And finally, about the other countries and other powers, beyond making statements which are critical of the US or of Israel, or even just giving lip service to the idea of the two-state solutions, the so-called other powers in this so-called multipolar world, like Iran, China, Russia, India, Japan, they're doing nothing. They're just standing by and watching. They're irrelevant to the world today. Beyond if they are in the Security Council, and none of these are actually, except China and Russia, and they were able to block a few initiatives of the United States to condemn only Hamas and not Israel. And beyond that, these countries, these so-called other powers in the multipolar world, have proven to be useless, really. They're just not impactful in the global reality at the moment. So I'm not very sure that we can take these powers as serious powers. And especially Japan. Where is Japan in all of this? Japan, India, who are aspiring for a veto power and permanent membership in the UN Security Council, where are they on these critical security issues? Nothing. They must be contributing to humanitarian aid, but so am I. So what's the big deal? Europe is interesting to look at what Europe is doing. It is standing with Israel, standing with the United States, but not all of those countries. They are condemning Hamas, but they're also condemning the inhumane manner in which Israel is conducting its revenge war. Netanyahu called it mighty vengeance. So don't assume that I'm calling it a revenge war. Israelis are calling it a mighty vengeance war. Israel does have a right to defend itself from terrorist activities, but it does not have the license to kill innocent people because Hamas killed innocent people. There's a difference, I'm assuming, between a democratic country and a terrorist organization. But if you're going to behave in the same way as a terrorist organization, then what Hamas did is terrorism, and then what Israel is also doing is no different at all. So these are the observations that I want to make of this on this 1 month anniversary. I don't know whether to call it an anniversary or what. It's been 1 month since the crisis has unfolded. It is very stressful. It is testing the morality of all societies, and unfortunately, I can tell you that as the world stands by and watches what is happening in Gaza, hospitals are bombed, schools are bombed, ambulances are bombed, children are killed, the world doesn't look really very good. This is Muqtedar Khan. Please subscribe to Khanversations to get more of such commentaries and interviews. Like the video, press the bell icon, and I will see you soon.